Mr. Whatever your name is, do you mind leaving my office right now?" Ophelia asked, her face scrunched up in irritation. "No, I'm not leaving until you give me an answer. I brought a proposal to you and I expect you to respond," the man insisted. "Then you leave me with no choice but to call my security." She moved closer to her intercom, pressing the button. He pulled at the intercom and she glared at him. "Don't be too harsh, Ophelia, my dear. I came here like a gentleman, proposing marriage to you. Why are you behaving this way? Haven't you ever been proposed to?" "I've told you I want to marry you, Ophelia. My family's prestigious. They want for nothing, much more prestigious than that your husband, Prescott. If you marry me, within a year you would have triplets and you would always be satisfied, trust me," the man said, giving her a wink. "What? And someone allowed this donkey into my office?" she thought aloud to herself so that he could hear her. Carlos looked at her, smiling. He expected this reaction from her. He liked women like her who put up a fight before they were finally caught. To him, she was a fish. A small little fish in an ocean of whales and sharks. And he saw himself as a shark who was willing to swallow her. "So, concerning my proposal, do you agree or not?" he said, adjusting his suit. "I think you don't understand English or you are just dumb. I said no," Ophelia shouted. "Won't you at least think about it? After all, your husband is not really offering you anything," Carlos suggested. "I cannot marry you. You don't look like the type that I like or I want. My husband is the best man ever. You do not stand on the same level as him. He's amazing and he is awesome. Why would I leave him because of you?" Ophelia snarled. Who is this idiot to come into our office and say nonsense? She thought to herself as Carlos got up and came to her side. "I guess you leave me with no choice," he said, yanking her from the chair in which she sat. Pulling her, he took out a handkerchief from his pocket. As he held her two hands like a vice, her struggles were futile. He placed the handkerchief on her mouth. Before long, she was out. He noticed a secret elevator and took her down to wherever it may lead. He knew that this was an easier way to get out of the building without being detected by her bodyguards, and his driver was already waiting there for him. He laid her in the back seat of the car and sat next to her. He put her head on his lap. "Bruno, let's go," he ordered as he caressed her hair. "The things I would do to you, Benita. Today you would really forget about your so-called husband. Did I tell you that I like feisty women? Don't worry, all your sass will be gone," he said to himself as he caressed her hair. His body responded to all the words he was saying. He saw that she was so beautiful. He caressed her face. Such a perfect face. And look at this beautiful blonde hair. She is just my type. This is the kind of woman I have dreamt of having as a wife. She's my soulmate. If I don't marry her, let me lose my name and my company, he vowed to himself. They drove out of the car park and onto the road to where his mansion was located. He didn't notice that the two cars ahead of him were Prescott's car, and he was in one of them. He also did not notice that the ones behind him were also Alexander Prescott's. He was so engrossed in charging himself up that he failed to notice this. It was like an entourage escorting the groom and his wife home. There were armed men in the cars ready for the go-ahead from Alexander Prescott. Alexander looked at his head of security. "Tell the boys not to do anything yet. When he gets home, we'll apprehend him there," he said simply, unfazed about what was currently happening. "You park behind and come out with the arms, and you know what to do next after that." Carlos had his hand in Ophelia's hair, admiring the softness of it and engrossed in her beauty. Her plump lips, her full eyelashes, and her aquiline nose captivated him. He knew he had to be with her forever. He had no plans to let her go. The bodyguards sitting in the front seats of Carlos's car knew that there was something off with the two cars in front and at the back, following in the same direction they went. They thought they were doomed but couldn't say anything, especially when their boss was busy admiring a woman. Everyone knew Carlos's weakness for blonde women. If you happened to interrupt his flow, he would definitely do something brash like shoot a shot in your head. Unfortunately for him, Alexander Prescott also knew this weakness and knew what he was planning. As his boys called to him, "Boss, boss." All he did in response was a shh. He didn't want to be interrupted by anyone. He was mesmerized by Ophelia's face. He didn't want to be interrupted from taking in all her features, enjoying this moment with her head on his lap, thinking of all the things that he could do when he got home. When they got to where his mansion was located, as they turned towards the gate, the cars in front blocked the gate, and then the ones behind had also blocked the back of his car. Men came out of the cars in front. The bodyguard and the driver were terrified. They could hardly speak. Even when they looked back, they still saw their boss was engrossed. Alexander had a gun in his hand, and he cocked it. It was that sound that made Carlos lift up his head from the land of promises to reality. He looked up and knew he was surrounded. "Well, next time, my blondie wife, I didn't think this through," Carlos whispered. Meanwhile, Ophelia was already coming out from the daze the chloroform had put her in. She got up from her lying state and looked around. She became scared instantly, remembering what had happened to her. She looked straight ahead and saw her husband standing with a gun in his hand. Carlos stepped out of the car, and she also went through the other side and came out of the car, running toward her husband. She held him in her arms as she jumped on him, straddling him. She kissed him deeply, a surge of emotion washing over her as he kissed her. It was a duet of tongues. They had forgotten where they were. They were lost in each other's passion, each one challenging the other to do more. It was when he wanted to move that he remembered he had a captor to take care of. He broke the kiss, the two of them looking into each other's eyes breathlessly. He turned his gaze to Bully. "Get him," was all he said as he continued from where he stopped. He carried his wife into the car as they kept their tongues locked for a while longer. Bully went to take Carlos into their car. They squeezed him in the midst of three big men who were sitting in the back seat. Carlos was a small-bodied man, so his fate in the back seat was very slim. "Alexander, thank God you came. How did you know I was taken?" Ophelia said, hugging him, happy to see him. "But I told you Bully would always be there in your office, and I knew when Carlos came around. I know him very well. He was once my friend, and I know how he operates. As you can see, he's not a friend, he's an enemy. And he's the one that Vicky, my sister, went to recently. I'm sure this is one of their plans to move you away from me. One of the messages that was sent to you, it's from him as well. And that message that I told you, I know the person and I was familiar with the person. It's him. The position he is seeking is something he can never handle. It's for only fast-thinking and action-driven people. It's not for people who have messed up their lives with a lot of women. Carlos can never handle anything. Even his father's companies are dying," he informed his wife. "How was the position gotten?" Ophelia asked curiously, knowing that this was her opportunity to know more about Alexander. "You get the position by vote, and it was a unanimous one. Nobody voted for him, but he still feels this position is his," he explained. "Oh, now I get it," Ophelia remembered. "Alexander, what language were you speaking last night?" "Italian," he answered cautiously, wondering where she was headed with this question. "You are Italian, yet you have a strong British accent. No one can ever know that you are from Italy. I know several people who are from Italy whose intonation is very obvious. But also answer me this. What Italian has the name Prescott?" she asked quizzically. "My ancestors moved from Italy to England. For a long time we have been here. My great-grandfather lived here, my grandfather also lived here all his life, and my father too. It's a rare thing for Italians to bear Prescott. I feel like it also depends on where one grows up, what culture they imbibe," he explained. "Alexander, then you are part of the mafia," she said, with wide eyes searching his for the truth. "Yes, if you want to call it that. But I don't call myself that because I'm not involved in ending any human life, and my staff do not do that as well." "So this is who my husband is? A mobster, Don?" Ophelia asked. "Don't you like me already knowing this little information? Does it stop you from loving me?" he asked, waiting for an answer. "Ophelia, I love you. Don't leave me," he begged. "Alexander, I never said anything about leaving you. I'm not going to leave you," she said. "I know you said nothing of that sort, but the way you are talking makes me feel like you don't want someone like me," he said sadly. "Yes, it's because I'm just now knowing this. And you should have told me this from the moment I stepped into this house. It does not take too much. I know there are a lot of things that you want to tell me at your own time, But now is the best time to say it. Your time seems to be like 100 years. Then you'd say it when you could just say it now. She expressed her feelings. Alexander laughed. I think we're done for today. Let's go back home. So they went home together. When they got to their room, Ophelia and Alexander got comfortable. Every few minutes she would look his way, and Alexander would also look at her. Why do you keep looking at me like that, Ophelia? He said with narrowed eyes. He looked even hotter this way, his words mesmerizing but not registering in her mind. He said something, but she was hearing something else. Ophelia, you're looking right at me like you want to eat me. I could give you the opportunity, he said with a crooked smile. She threw one of the throw pillows at him. That's not what I'm thinking about, you crazy man, she said, and he laughed. Tell me then, sweetheart. Alexander, it seems like I'm just seeing you for the first time. So you're not only a pizza delivery guy? The pizza delivery thing, I don't understand. How does it blend with what you do? She asked him, for the first time realizing she had never asked this question before. Yes, the restaurants are part of my company, Alexander said nonchalantly. So when I order pizza, how come you always come? My mobile app is a general app for other restaurants to showcase what they serve, so how do you show up there whenever I order pizza? Ophelia said. I've hacked your phone, he blurted out. She looked at him in shock and searched for another throw pillow around her to throw at him. You crazy person, she screamed. He laughed heartily. I have to make sure you are safe at all times, and that includes hacking your device. But as for the pizza restaurants and everything that has to do with that, I have restaurants all over the country and also in other countries as well, Alexander explained. I can't believe you, Alexander. She was supposed to be angry at this point in time, but she wasn't. She was rather in awe of him. This is an incredible man, she thought to herself. I'm sorry I haven't completely opened up myself to you. It will take a while. Just be patient with me, Alexander said. Also, tell me one thing. What did Carlos tell you when he came to your office? He told me he brought a proposal of marriage, she confessed, and Alexander laughed at the silliness of Carlos. Can you believe that? This was a man I was seeing for the first time, and he wanted to marry me off the bat. I told him I was a married woman, and he told me that you were a no-show. He said you were not capable of anything when it came to intimacy, and he talked about your ex-wife and what you couldn't do with her, Ophelia summarized. He said that? Now I know. The pieces are falling into place.